YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and it's playoff time. Wild card weekend starts this weekend. The playoff teams are set, and I'm here to rank all the playoff teams. We're ranking them from worst to first. I do this video every single year, so I'm really excited about it. This has nothing to do with the regular season. We're starting fresh. Who you beat, who you lost to, what your record was means nothing. Who you're playing head-to-head this upcoming week doesn't mean much. It's just how I think the teams are, how good I think they are, their chances to make a run in the playoffs. So that's how these rankings go. They're not predictions for this upcoming weekend. We'll get to the picks. Those are coming. Don't worry. So they're just rankings. My opinion, ranking these teams. Can't wait to do it. Follow our Twitter. A lot going on there, keeping you up to date with all the NFL news, whether it's playoff news, whether it's offseason news. A lot going on. We have some polls on there. We have some polls on the Sided app as well. You debate football just like you do in the comments section here, and you can actually win Amazon gift cards. We'll talk more about that in a little bit here. But any link that you need from us, they'll be down in the description or the comments there. Please subscribe for new full NFL coverage, off-season, playoffs. We're in both those modes at the same time. We got you covered. So subscription would be much appreciated. But yeah, I talked about that Sided app. I posted a poll for you guys, two of them actually. Who is the best team for the playoffs in the AFC? So not based on the regular season. You vote. You click who you're voting for. Obviously, the same for the NFC. I'll put links to both of these in the comment. It'll be pinned in the comment section. So if you get enough likes on your comment, you can see the leaderboard on the side here. You will earn points, and you can win Amazon gift cards. Pretty cool. The top 10 places actually win Amazon gift cards, so you don't even have to finish first. So yeah, if you want to vote for an example, Washington or the Bears, you click that and you defend your side, and you can type in Bears if you want to do Bears, and then Y. Same thing applies to the other teams there. So pretty cool. Check it out. We're going to go on to rankings here, all 14 playoff teams. And speaking of the Bears, I got the Bears at 14. It was a toss-up between 13, the team I have at 13 and the team I have at 14 here. I was back and forth in my head which one is which. And again, this isn't head-to-head against, there's 14 teams we got to rank. This is how I think they are against the playoff field, how I think they are as a team in playoff mode. Are they a playoff team? And all 14 teams are playoff teams, obviously, but how good of a playoff team are they, and how can they make a run? And the Bears have a shot against the Saints this week. They took them to overtime, and that was when the Bears weren't playing their best ball. So they're getting a little better on offense, sure. But yeah, I got them at 14. I just think the other teams have a better shot to make a run. I don't really know what the Bears' identity is. I think it's more defense. The defense is still, I'd consider, good. There's not too many good defenses left. Hopefully Roquan Smith's okay. I heard he could be out. Hopefully he's all right. That's a big-time player right there. But yeah, defense, teams starting to score a little more on them. I don't know if the defense is going to go out and win a game by themselves. Do they have to, though? The offense has been picking it up. But I don't really trust this offense, in a playoff environment right now. They played a playoff team, a damn good playoff team in the Packers, and they couldn't do much of anything on offense. They're relying on being up with their new system. Play a lot of play action pass. They rely on being up or in the game to run. Anytime they scored points against the Packers, they were in good field position. So they rely on quite a bit there, I think. And I just don't know if they match up well against the field compared to the other teams. Good team right now. Maybe they could be in any given week, they can be balanced. They can have a solid offense and a solid defensive performance. So that's the good thing about the Bears there. But I just don't know if they match up well. Can I trust both the offense and the defense? I can see weeks where the offense gets shut down. I can see weeks where we're here with the top tier teams in the playoffs. I could see weeks where the teams, these offensive teams, that there's a lot of them in the playoffs, kind of just scored up on them, and can their offense keep up? So, not a lot of trust in them. I still like their defense. Their offense is getting better. Not a lot of trust in Mitchell Trubisky in this environment, though. They're going to be 14, and I was back and forth, like I said, between them and the Washington football team. The deciding factor is I can see Washington going out and winning a playoff game or multiple because of their defense. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying I'm predicting that to happen, but I think their defense at the point where going into the year, I thought I predicted Washington and the Bears to be in the same range, top-tier defenses, and for the most part this year, they have been, but I think Washington's much better right now, and I think they can go out and they can shut teams out completely, and they can win because of that with their takeaways, setting their offense up, almost scoring on on defense. Offense, I'm really worried about. It's tough to tell. That was originally I had Washington last because this offense, man, they could have lost to the Eagles. This offense is not good. They can't do much. But is there really that much of a difference between Washington offense, the Bears offense in the playoff environment against the better teams? Not too much of a difference. I like where Washington's defense is heading very much. They can actually go out and win them games even if the offense is doing nothing there. So obviously not a team we're extremely confident about, but love the defense. I think that's more experience, too, if you want to compare. I'm not really here to compare two teams, but I did say I was very close between Washington and the Bears. I think the experience of Alex Smith could be it's not a big difference there, but Alex Smith versus Trubisky, maybe a little bit. So Washington's at 13. Number 12 is actually the Cleveland Browns, who it's tough to rank them. They're all good teams. So if you're a lower rank, it doesn't mean I think you're bad. It doesn't mean I don't think you have a shot to win. So I don't want anybody taking anything the wrong way here. But the Browns are tough because that offense can be dangerous. It could be really good. They may have the formula to throw teams off. So if you're just not as good of a team, we'll use this as an example. Use the Browns. Maybe you're just not as good of a. You can be, but maybe you're not as good of a team as the Chiefs or the Bills. This is kind of the system that you want. You want to establish the run. You want to wear the other team out. You want to control the time of possession, because if you control the time of possession, you can create upsets. I don't know if there's major upsets in the NFL in the playoffs. These are all the best teams, but you can create that upset with managing the time of possession. And you can also throw teams off kind of their groove. Maybe they won't be able to get in their groove from the start. So at the same time, the Browns do, and that could be the case to argue the Browns should be higher than 12. Are they ready for the playoffs? Do they have the experience? They haven't really, the last couple weeks maybe, they haven't been playing the best ball. Stefanski hasn't really been calling the best games. Has he been saving it for the playoffs? That's kind of the knock, though, at the same time with their system. They rely on their run game a bit much. Baker can throw. I like Baker Mayfield, but if they get down by 2 scores, early, it feels like they're done, because that takes away the run game from them. They're out of their game, and that takes away the play action pass, which Baker has thrived on. You're in obvious passing situations. Baker has to throw from the pocket. I'm not saying he'll play bad in that situation, but most quarterbacks don't play well in those situations. And that's not their game. So that's kind of the flaw to the Browns. Defensively, Myles Garrett's a playmaker. I like Denzel Ward. Sheldon Richardson's underrated. He's been a beast. So they got some guys that can make plays. They're going to lose Olivier Vernon, unfortunately. He's been playing pretty solid, but it's a defense that's lacking speed. They're not too good covering the deep ball as well. You can get big plays, big chunk plays, big yards, big points on the Browns defense. They're relying on specifics too much, so that is why the Browns are towards the bottom here, but a very impressive season. They're on the right track, a team of the future. And again, like I said in the beginning, they might have the formula to do it. It's just how they start in games, I suppose. So they're at 12. 11 is going to be the Rams. Tell you what, the Rams probably be higher if I can trust that Jared Goff would play right out the gate. Again, this isn't predictions, so I'm not comparing the Rams to the Seahawks here. It's nothing about those two teams. We're comparing all the playoff teams together here. So Goff probably out this week, but I guess that doesn't have too much to do with it. But it sounds like a Rams team with either no or a limit, not 100% Goff. So that's why they are towards the bottom. But this is, in my opinion, it could be the Steelers at any given time. Maybe it could be Washington. In my opinion, this is the best defense in the playoffs. It's the best defense in the playoffs. I think built, all the way across. Well built all the way across. They get pressure. They're excellent in the secondary. They can shutting down number one receivers is the key here. There's some teams out there that kind of rely on the number one receivers. If you take them away, which a guy like Jalen Ramsey and company can do, that can create some problems. The offense, not as of late, but during the year, especially, still later in the season, but not the very latest part of the season, offense look dangerous. They'll wear you out. They have high tempo. When they need to score, they'll score. For the most part, it felt like that. So if the Rams were 100%, they'd be a dangerous team. They'd be much better ranked than 11, but I don't think they're 100%. But their defense is, and their defense could create serious matchup problems. It's an offensive era, but when you get the limited, there's a rare amount of good defenses like this, really could throw teams for a loop. So it's dangerous. So they won't be at the very bottom because of their defense, but I am worried about their offense mainly because of injury, at the quarterback position right now. But I love this defense. I wish they were full strength right now. But who knows? It's not 100% that Goff will be out. and that could be a good game against Seattle. But again, these aren't really head-to-head rankings. Number 10 is going to be the Steelers. Big game against the Browns this week. It just which Steelers are going to show up earlier in the season, later in the season. Felt like they figured something out at the end of the Colts game, but it's such a small sample size. We're using a half of a football. If you think the Steelers are going to get rolling again, it's playoff time, they got experience, they figured something out in the second half against the Colts. If you think that is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And I got, 10's not a bad rank. These are all good teams, but it's hard for me to trust them fully, if you can understand there. But they could rely on their defense quite a bit. It's a damn good defense. It could be the best in football. I wish they had Bud Dupree. I wish they had, Devin Bush, those guys in the middle there. Because Bud Dupree is very underrated. He's very, very good. Him and TJ Watt together are ridiculous. They would be the best defense in the playoffs if that was the case. So that was unfortunate, but their defense could go out and win them games. It really depends on the offense. Talked about in the past why they were struggling at one point. It's because they were so specifically one-dimensional, not just one-dimensional, so specific to the quick passing game. So maybe they've opened things up in the downfield passing game. Can James Conner get going? It'll all depend on the matchups, but the lack of offense, lack of trust in offense, and the defense still very, very good, still great, but not playing as good as they have been in the past. There's not a whole bunch to get too crazy about in terms of a playoff run. Not saying it's not possible. So that's why they're going to be at 10 here. Number 9 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. A strange team, too. I like the balance of the team. The balance is what gets them going and what could get them a run. They're really getting going on offense compared to earlier in the year. They are giving up a little more yards and points, to opposing offense on the defense. I still like the defense. It's still one of the better ones in the playoffs. The teams remaining here, obviously all the playoff teams. So that balance could be good. It's just, can I trust them to put a complete game together? When they get up in games, things kind of go a little strangely, I suppose. So I guess they got to stick right with the team. You got to be right there, maybe a back and forth type game. Then it's a Colts type of game. Then we're in business here. So can I trust them to get a complete game? That they are balanced. So if offense and defense on the same page, throughout the whole game, they're dangerous. They're very dangerous. Defense can create turnovers. Offense, they go quick. They use that run game. They dump it off to Naheem Hines too, and they've been hitting a little more deep shots. Rivers has the capabilities of throwing interceptions on. Maybe not just the deep shots, but he has those. So how will they be against the field? I think this could be a pretty. They're sitting at number 9. I think it's a pretty good rank. Because of their balance, because the offense has improved, but still waiting for. We've had complete games, but maybe more of it, some more trust there. They could be dangerous because of that balance there. So they are at number 9. There's some teams that they actually match up very well against. There's some teams they don't. So we'll see how they go against the Bills this week. I got them at 9. 8's going to be the Seahawks. And the Seahawks are the most mysterious team of the playoffs, for me at least. They can end up being, when it's all said and done, number 1. They could be. Are they a balanced team? Are they an offensive team? Are they a defensive team? The first half of the season, just pure offense. The defense was one of the very worst in football. The second half of the season, down the stretch, really, the offense wasn't playing well. Russell Wilson, not bad, but wasn't playing like Russell Wilson, and the defense is playing very good. I can trust the defense won't go back to playing very bad. I can definitely trust that. It's tough to tell, too. Is the offense saving stuff for the playoffs? I can almost see, for some reason, I could be wrong. I think it's more likely that the offense is more of the identity of the team. Not that the defense will be bad, but how they match up against the other top dogs in the NFC. If it's one of those high-powered offensive teams, can they keep up? Because sometimes their offense has slip-ups. They can't execute. Is that the true Seahawks offense? Can they keep up? Because those top-tier offenses, I do think, even though Seahawks defense is balling, it's improving. I do think those top-tier offenses, Packers is one example, will score. They're not going to score 40 points, but they're going to, they won't have, I don't think they'll have too many problems. I think, I don't think they'll have too many problems with that defense. So can they keep up when they play the teams that are the better defensive teams? Maybe the Bucs have a little bit better defense than the other top-tier contenders to slow down the Seahawks offense, and we know Tom Brady and company can score. How do they match up against those teams? It doesn't sound great, but we don't really have the true playoff identity on the Seahawks. You can predict all you want. You can predict and you can be right, but we really don't know right now. We really don't know. So it's kind of a weird team. It doesn't look like they match up all that well against those top tier teams. 8's still a pretty good ranking. I still view them as a contender because at any given time they can be offense and defense on the same page, same time. They can be a very high-powered offense with Russell Wilson and a great coaching staff for the most part. But it's a weird team. It's a weird team. And you wouldn't think this would be a weird team because we've seen them in the playoffs every year. So, yeah, can't wait to see them because I don't know what to expect. I think it could be different by week, and that could be a little scary. You want to be consistent throughout the whole week. So, we'll see. We'll see. 7's going to be the Titans. And a few weeks ago, I may have had the Titans much better ranked, higher ranked. Maybe, because I was on the Titans train. I still love this offense. I really do love this offense, because they'll get you with the running game, and that'll open up the pass, but they don't really need the running game to open up the pass. And that's kind of the topper for the Titans because Tannehill can throw A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, Jonnu Smith. These guys can play as well. Tannehill can use his legs. Those read options they run, they're pretty dangerous, and they've been more dangerous season went on. They've been using them in better times. So I don't know. It's kind of a tough game plan. The Titans will score. They could be, I'm not saying they could be the best offense in the playoffs when it's all said and done, but they have the worst defense in the playoffs when it's all said and done. That's what's kind of keeping them from the top, even though all these teams are great. We even saw the Seahawks at 8, so these rankings are still good. These numbers next to their names, next to their logos I still view them as good teams. And that offense can be dangerous. I just worry, they kind of have a cap on them. They can go to the AFC Championship, but are they going to get by that without without a defense, really, but specifically without a pass rush? Pass rush, you look at the most important things, football, it's quarterback play. It's protecting the quarterback. It's getting after the quarterback. They all have to do with the quarterback. Quarterback play is good. Protecting the quarterbacks where they're a little iffy. Sometimes, the run blocking is fantastic. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're up. But the pass rush, getting after the quarterback, they are so bad at it. They got to the quarterback in the Texans game, but that doesn't mean a whole bunch. So that's what I worry about. Titans offense is elite. It's dangerous. You can control the time of possession on top of it, which can create upsets, can throw teams off. They can't dig themselves holes. In a way, they're like the Browns a bit. They can't dig themselves holes. You see the Packers games, you see the Browns game. They can beat those teams at any given time, but if it goes the way it does, when they dig themselves holes, it's bad. It's bad. So it's an elite offense. Defense needs to improve. Defense was pretty good in the playoffs last year. Let's see if they see if they wake back up. And obviously, if you've been watching the video, you can tell that I have the Ravens ahead of the Titans. It doesn't mean I'm picking. That's who they play each other. It doesn't mean I'm picking the Ravens. The Titans have an interesting matchup. When I pick, it's all about matchup game. I'm not ranking teams based on Titans versus Ravens. So that's something to keep in mind there. 6, I got the Saints. The Saints, another team that can bring some pretty good balance. Can we trust the Saints in the playoffs? I don't know if there's a whole lot of logic behind that. It's just in the back of our minds. It's sitting there. The Saints have been disappointing in the past, but there's not really much. You can't go in and say the Saints aren't going to be good. They're going to lose because in the past. I'm not really buying that, but at the same time, it's sitting in the back of my mind like it is a lot of you, I think, that can they kind of get out of that funk, in the playoffs? Can they get out of it? Because it's been pretty much the same team. So maybe they're, because of that, since it's the same team, maybe there's a little bit of logic. But the Saints, their offense seems like it's heating up. It's getting better, so they can put up points, and their defense has been pretty stout for the most part this year. Will they be on the same page at the same time? I think they haven't really been on the same page at the same time, most down the stretch of the season. So when they go play the high-powered offenses that are just going to score on them, they're going to score on them. They're not going to shut down those high-powered offenses. Can they keep up? I think the problem in the past was, the downfield shots. People game plan a little differently in the playoffs. They game plan at a higher level. So they're going to game plan specifically for what the Saints' strengths are, obviously. So can they get things going downfield? And then there's going to be games when they play the defensive teams. Can they score on those teams? Can the defense help them win those games? So can we trust the Saints to be offense and defense be on the same page at the same time? I think we can, but can we? Game after game after game after Super Bowl, can we? That's kind of the question with them. I have them at 6. It's a very high ranking because I think it's a really good football team across the board. Can they get out of that playoff funk? It's definitely a contender. It's definitely a good team. Can't wait to watch them here. They're at 6. 5 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens, who are hot right now. They'll play a little better competition than they have been playing, but it doesn't seem like they're back just because they're scoring a bunch of points. It's the play calling, the play designs, the scheme, everything. It seems like they're kind of back offensively. The knock on them when they have to throw the ball downfield, can they? Lamar Jackson can. He's just not as consistent as, Aaron Rodgers, some of these other guys. You get my point there. I don't need to sit and list quarterbacks. So that's kind of the question. They're running, people are going to game plan for them running. Lamar, if they game plan correctly, the Titans last year and the Ravens don't look all that good. So that's kind of a knock on them. But they have the defense I don't think is as good as it was early in the year. The offense feels like it's better, but the defense does give some unique matchups for teams. They'll get pressure by blitzing. They got really good corners. They'll have that tight coverage. They'll get takeaways. So the Ravens can present some problems. They're a team that maybe I trust a little more than other teams that are balanced to show up at the same time. The offense defense can show up a little more often at the same time, and that can create some problems. But the big problem here is, yes, what you're going to game plan for against the Ravens. You know what you're going to game plan for, but sometimes you just can't stop it. Most of the time, you just can't stop it. It's a thing where you can be confident in your game plan, but you won't be confident with them actually stopping them. So Lamar Jackson most certainly presents a problem, and them being a balanced team most certainly presents a problem. Again, they changed. I think they changed a little bit of things. Their play calling more, their blocking schemes, a little bit different types of plays down the stretch of the season, and it's pretty hard. It's specifically this is who we got to stop, but it's pretty hard to figure out, especially because we don't have a big sample size. So there's just multiple reasons that it's a tough matchup for teams, So I like where the Ravens are heading right now, but it is a tough matchup for them. They could very well be out against the Titans. I have them ranked ahead of the Titans. Does that mean I think they're going to beat the Titans? Does that mean I think they are better head-to-head against Titans? Doesn't necessarily. So we'll see who we pick. We'll see what ends up happening, more importantly. But they're heading in the right direction, heading into the playoffs. On to the top 4. Number 4, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're heating up at the right time. I picked this team to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year, and then I started to kind of get off that a bit, and now I'm starting to think it's more realistic. At one point this year, I'm like, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're really not going anywhere. But now I'm starting to think it's a little more realistic because the Tom Brady and company, this offense is on. The play calling, everything is on. But can they be in the playoffs? They're going to play a Washington football team right away who has a defense, who was a very good defense, which they struggle against. So they can prove more to us there. Defense, I like the defense. It's a very balanced team, and at any given time, they can be elite on either side of the ball. Can they be elite on both sides of the ball at the same time? That's kind of the question. I think that kind of the knock is if Brady's kind of off his game, it feels like sometimes the whole team's off their game, but they can. I think they match up actually particularly well against a lot of these other contenders. So you look at the field, they match up well. I think they can beat a lot of these teams. There's a couple teams they don't match up well at all against, but there's more of the field where they really do. So that being said, I do think they can make somewhat of a run. That's why they're a highly ranked team here. So they're at 4. And we're on the top 3. If you know your stuff, the top 3 are. I'm not talking about the order, but I'm going to put the Packers at 3. And we talk about the Bucs present a tough matchup. They might present a tough matchup for the Packers, and they might see each other in the second round. The Buccaneers destroyed them earlier in the year. Does that mean the same thing's going to happen? No, but it's interesting. They present a tough matchup, but I still have the Packers ahead of them because the Packers are the best team in the NFC right now. They're a team. Yeah, if they play a really good defense, if they can slow them down and they can run the ball on them, that could be a problem. But I don't think there's really any stopping them. I think the key would be teams will try to just take Devontae Adams out of the game. And that's why I think the Rams might be a tough matchup if they ever had to play them. Because if you take Devontae Adams out of the game, which is easier said than done, I don't know if you can actually do it, but really slow them down, make the other guys beat them. The other guys can, but it's not ideal for the Packers. That could be the problem they face, but there might only be the Rams that can not even stop but slow that down. So that might be the only team there that can do that. So that would be the only flaw maybe that they could see. But I don't think there's really any stopping them. When they need to go down and score, they score. When they need to run, they have everything kind of combined into one. They have that dagger, that downfield throw, that explosive play. But they can control the clock as well when they want to. With Aaron Jones with their running game, with Aaron Rodgers with the quick outs, but the guys don't need to go out of bounds. They're very good at that. They're very smart. Bakhtiari getting hurt it takes a hit. It takes a hit. I still trust this offensive line. I still think it's at the end of the day, it's going to be one of the best offensive lines. Protecting the potential MVP here in the playoffs. But they do take a hit from that. Obviously, he might be the best tackle in all of football. The defense is playing better. I think they'll get a little more pressure in the playoffs. I do worry about the run defense, but it has been a little better. They got some playmakers in the back end, so that's good. That's fantastic with the matchup with their offense. But, yeah, so it's more of a balanced team than we once thought. It's not the same Packers team as last year. Last year, they struggled on offense, and they made it to the NFC Championship game. Now they got that offense, and the defense hasn't been as good as last year, but it's improved throughout this season where it could get back to that point, and that's the scary thing for the Packers. I think they match up extremely well against a lot of teams. There's a couple teams, like the Bucs, like the Rams. Rams they probably won't see that. I don't think they match up well, but that's two teams out of all the teams here. So it's a serious contender. They got probably the MVP right now playing at the highest level. Right now almost feels like he's getting better. Aaron Rodgers, that is, so it's pretty crazy. So Packers I got as a top NFC team, but I do have two AFC teams as the best teams in the playoffs. I got the Bills at 2, and they're very close to being at 1. I mean, so are the Packers and the Bucs, the Ravens, the Saints. Those guys are all close too. But I got the Bills at 2. They actually might be a little more complete than the Chiefs. This defense is getting better. It's playmaking defense right now. This is more of the defense I thought they would be earlier in the year when they started off a little slow. But if you had to pick one, when do you want to start heating up? They're in the right spot right now. They got some playmakers. They're getting more pressure. They're pretty sounded about everything. Like, you're not going to torch them through the air. You're not going to torch them through the ground. Like, they're just, there's games where they won't play their best ball. They'll give up some yards, some points, but you're not going to just dominate them. And there's other teams that, aren't really going to get dominated, but I can see scenarios where, there's a certain weakness they got, and the Bills don't have that defensively, and they're creating plays, Offensively, they're lights out right now. They have such a wide variety of their playbook, so it's such a hard game plan. All of a sudden, they'll be throwing options out of nowhere. So it's a multiple offense. They'll bring anything to the table here. And Josh Allen's playing as good as anybody. He's right there for Rodgers, Mahomes, Derrick Henry for MVP, I suppose. You kind of got to worry about him running at the same time. We got to cover that deep ball. Is he going to run? And then you kind of got the underneath wide open. So it's you kind of gonna know what you got a game plan for. But at the same time, you kind of don't, because there's such a wide variety of outcomes here. I wish they had a better run game with their actual running backs. Maybe that's what's holding them from being maybe number one. I think the focus going into the Bills, playing the Bills is let's not give up the deep ball, the big plays that Stephon Diggs thrown by Josh Allen. We're kind of game planning for those guys. Let's make the other guys beat us, but the other guys can beat them, and Stephon Diggs can still beat you, and the defense can win games. So it's a very dangerous team. It's the hottest team in football. I think they are more complete than the Chiefs, but I still got the Chiefs, the defending champs, at number 1. I picked them to win the Super Bowl going into the year, so it's probably not a surprise that they're toward the top here for me. But the Chiefs, explosive offense. They spread the field out more than anybody in NFL history. They spread it out so much. They got the best player in football, even though he might not be the MVP, might not be my MVP pick, but he's still the best player in football, and Patrick Mahomes. I guess their lack of running game could hurt them too, as well as the Bills. I just think the difference is the Chiefs spread the field out a little more. And they got Travis Kelce, doing work a lot of time in the middle, and that helps spread it out even more. And they have the elite speed, which dominates today's NFL. I don't have to break down their offense for you, but they have a game. People have game plan problems with the Chiefs as well, because how do we get pressure on Mahomes? We can't really get it the old-fashioned way. We can get pressure blitzing, but for whatever reason, he becomes better when you blitz him, and he just picks that apart. And obviously, there's less people in coverage if you're blitzing. So there's really no right answer to Patrick Mahomes. You got to hope that he's off his game. There's a couple times down the stretch of the season where he was off his game. I really do. I could be wrong, but I really do believe the Chiefs were they didn't really have their playoff game plan and play calling. They were kind of getting a little fancy, and it makes sense. They know they're good enough to win. They don't want to show a whole bunch. So they're obviously gonna go all out in the playoffs here. Defensively, they game plan very well defensively. Spagnuolo's a fantastic defensive coach. A guy like Frank Clark's got to pick it up a little bit. I think he will. Chris Jones is going to tear it up. Then they make plays. Tyrann Mathieu and company, they make plays, whether it's in the back end, wherever it is, actually. So I think they're more balanced than people realize, and people probably don't realize it because their offense is probably the best in football. Yeah, I got the Chiefs at 1. Well, yeah, one thing is running game, because they did get the running game going. Look at the Super Bowl, Damian Williams. They did get the running game going. We'll look at going. Another thing is their offensive line got better and better every step of the way as soon as the playoffs started last year. That was a key piece. They weren't allowing anything after Patrick Mahomes. Anything. Is it there? Is it to that level? Let's compare it to, in my opinion, let's compare the offensive line where it's at now to where it was at this time before any playoff game last year. I think it was a little better last year, but it really wasn't that far off, surprisingly. But where, if you compare it to where it is now to where it ended up at the end of the playoffs, it's night and day. So they got to make those improvements again in playoff time, and they could do that, but that's kind of the question mark. Offensive line is a big question mark, actually, across the whole. It's going to decide a lot of the playoffs. I talk about it every year, going in every year. Offensive lines, they always start, the bad ones kind of lie to us. They start off pretty good, and when they really show us their true colors, their true identity, it's down the stretch of the season when Ware's involved and guys are still, intact and playing at the highest level. I don't even know exactly every reason why. Just some offensive lines that start playing a little worse, some stay the same or get better, the really good ones. So it's going to be a factor on which offensive lines stay together. The Chiefs, can they improve like last year? Can the Packers hold together without Bakhtiari? Questions like that, you can go for every team. So that's a factor. A team like the Saints, we definitely trust with the offensive line, so that could be a huge factor in why they can become, be that team at the top. So that's actually something that I don't think enough people talk about, because that shows at this time of the year, every year, not just some years, every year. So it's about quarterback's the most important thing in football, but then right there after it is protecting and getting after the quarterback. Those are the most important things in football, and that will show and that will decide just as much as quarterback play who will be at the top. So I'm excited. I'm very much excited for the playoffs. We got our picks coming up with the boys. That's every Tuesday night throughout the playoffs. Score predictions on Wednesday. We got all kind of playoff videos like this, breaking down everything. So we got you covered fully. So please smash that like button, subscribe, join us for all those videos. Follow our Twitter. It's a must follow. You guys are going to be deciding a lot. There's going to be, for pick'ems, there's going to be polls. You guys have a say in pick'ems as well. So a lot going on there. Follow that Twitter at CodeHouseNFL. Link down below, description, comments, as well as some other things to check out. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.